I've been at Google for almost 7 years now. I lead engineering for all our operational databases. I like to say I have two jobs at Google. I lead our transactional operational databases for Google Cloud, but for all parts of Google internally, YouTube, Gmail, ads, they all run on the same transactional database infrastructure.
What role do caches play in that ecosystem?
Caches are critical for performance. We have a lot of different caching systems built inside Google, and we find across the industry, customers invariably have requirements where they need the fastest performance, they need the lowest latencies, they need to sustain the highest QPS. And in many situations, when you have a certain footprint, you end up where you need very specific requirement where you cannot have any compromises, you cannot have latency excursions. Caches are often the best way to combine the different piece parts of your overall infrastructure, from databases and storage to the applications.
And is there a particular caching software or technology that you're particularly excited about?
I am super excited about Valkey. And in large part, I think it's because of what the really vibrant open source community. I have a theory about open source ecosystems, and there are two actually ecosystems that are working together. There is the contributor ecosystem, and there's the user ecosystem. And it's when the contributor ecosystem is vibrant, the user ecosystem is actually truly vibrant. We've seen this not just in things like Valkey, we've seen this in Postgres, and we've also seen counterexamples. We've seen in our industry, we've seen ecosystems start to wither away if the contributor ecosystem is not actually diverse. And so what we've seen in the last 2 years, since the community came together to launch Valkey, it's just been nothing short of amazing.
Is there particularly specific features in Valkey or contributions that excite you the most?
These last 2 years, we've seen a remarkable number of innovations in performance and reliability that really the wider caching user community has been waiting for, has been clamoring for. These things that have we've struggled in the past to see really come through: improved memory management, scaling to 1 billion queries per second, per field TTL, the new Glide client libraries. And then there's many innovations that Google has contributed. So we're very excited about leading vector search, atomic slot migrations. And in fact, the power of open source is in its compounding effects. For example, vector search that I just talked about serves as a foundation not just for customers' AI workloads, but also for other recent innovations like full text search.
Yeah, full text search has been a pretty exciting feature. For the most recent exciting feature that's come out of the Valkey contributor ecosystem, uh, Google seems to have been putting a lot of weight behind Valkey. I think, can you talk about some things other than the technical contributions that you've been making as well?
On behalf of Google, we are very proud to contribute to the community as well as serve on its technical steering committee. We're excited for continued participation and contribution in terms of code, in terms of reviews, in terms of evangelism and conference sponsorships to the Valkey community. We are grateful for the opportunity and for the community to be so inclusive and welcoming of us as well as our other customers, our competitors, our partners. And I think it's that ability to work with our competitors and partners and customers that really brings together the diversity and the health of the contributor community, which is really what I think leads to the health of the user community.
I think that's great.
The result of such an energized community is actually the steady pace of innovation. And this is why Valkey has really emerged as the undisputed leader in caching. We see this in our own Memorystore service. We are proud to be the first cloud service provider to release support for Valkey 9.0. Our customers are voting with their feet to pick Valkey as their preferred caching solution. And we're seeing this in customer adoption. We see it firsthand with industry leaders like Snapchat. They are migrating their high throughput, low latency, internet scale caches to Memorystore for Valkey as their solution of choice, driving better performance while drastically reducing management overhead.
You mentioned two things that I think are often undersold. You mentioned reliability and the distributed systems expertise, like the atomic slot migration and memory efficiencies. So I'm curious how you think about those two, what I find typically undersold capabilities that Valkey has gone in and invested in.
We should start with memory management. Any one of us, who've had the luxury, the opportunity to run large fleets of software, database software, caching software, we all know that we labor under the burden of handling OOMs. When you have an out of memory issue, you end up with an availability blip, end up with failure. Uh, and these are very tough to really understand, because sometimes it's people holding it wrong. Sometimes it could be a challenge in how the system is run. And so uh, there's a complex mix of things that need to be done to operate these systems with the highest level of availability and reliability, not just for experts who know how to use it, but for all kinds of users. And so some of this includes things like, hey, are we reserving the right amount of memory on each individual node? Second is, are we having the right accounting for memory management? Because the reality is we cannot eliminate all OOMs. And so in order to keep driving down the number of OOMs that happen, we need to make sure we can measure. And furthermore, finally, it's not enough to have these other kinds of pieces. In the end of the day, the more efficient you can make the actual underlying system, the more headroom you can get. And with caches, I think this is particularly important because they are often used in the most high performance, in the most latency critical parts of customer workloads. And when that surge of traffic comes, it's really critical that you don't keel over and fall with an OOM. So the more headroom we can get, the better it is for availability. Um, and now that gets to this interesting challenge with what happens when you have to scale out your caching system, especially with a clustered caching system. How can you move slots, up from nodes in a cluster in a way that is actually happening without race conditions, where you don't, it's typically when you're scaling out because you've got a sudden spike in load. That's the worst possible time to have a failure. So the better you can do at handling scale out, the better the overall reliability and availability for the customer is. And so I think, while, as you put it, Kwacha, while performance is important, while people have a need for speed, they also want to make sure that things don't fall. Uh, and we think it is important to continuously invest in all of these areas. And in fact, I think this improvement in performance, improvement in efficiency, improvement in availability, they all kind of go hand in hand. I like to say that, uh, you know, uh, uh, a long duration performance event actually becomes an availability event at some level. And if you take it more to the storage side, a long duration availability event effectively becomes a durability event. So all of these things are linked together. And it's important to actually not treat performance and reliability as separate pieces. They all work together well. The techniques we use to operate reliable services are effectively the same techniques we need to operate high performance services, to operate services with the best security constraints. All of these: security, correctness, performance, availability, reliability, they all go hand in hand. When is Unlocked?
May 7th,
It's up in Seattle.
Seattle. And now we have
Ah,
on video saying that you're going to try to come. So
all right, you have me.